We are live.
All right, good afternoon. We are going to call to order our final day of hearings for the City of Akron's operating budget. And Ms. Biviano, for the record, if we could just take attendance.
Sure. Baylor.
Here.
Connor.
Here.
Freeman.
Here.
Fusco.
Here, I'm not on the committee. I was surprised I was pulled, but I'm here.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Here.
McKittrick.
Here.
Pollock.
Here.
Neal.
Here.
Homobian.
Here.
Samples. Somerville. Swirsky. We have all budget and finance committee members, and we also have all other council members excluding Kamer, Samples, Somerville, and Swirsky.
Very good. All right, we will jump right in. Again, thanks to everybody for the past 2 days. I think so many of the questions have been good. They've been on point, really relating to the numbers here, and I've been encouraged the last 2 days. So, Mr. Fricker, let me throw it to you, and you can get us started here.
Okay, so welcome everyone. It's our final afternoon of the 2021 operating budget hearings. We are hoping to be able to, I know we've had some questions over the past 2 days, and we'll probably get some more today. We hope to kind of compile those sometime tomorrow, and then hopefully get those out to you, tomorrow afternoon sometime. So that is our goal. And with that said, we really have 2 departments and then 1 contractual budget that we have to go over. So I'm going to turn it over to Eve Belfance, our law director. She's going to go through the law department.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Belfance, welcome.
Good afternoon. Steve, I don't have the budget. I don't have the budget in front of me. I didn't know
Okay.
planning to share that then and move through it. So I thought that you might have that.
That's all right. So I do have that.
Yeah.
If you kind of just want to go over, if you have some thoughts you'd like to share, we can do those. And then, I know that the council members do have the budget. So if they have any specific budget questions.
Right. In the
we
interest
can go
of time, I really just, would love to, if there are any questions, our budget seems to be pretty straightforward, considering this past year. And I don't know that there's anything that is really that different than what the general expenses, that have existed time to operate.
Yeah, the one change I will highlight has to do with the public defender's contract. So there's kind of 2 changes associated with that. One, we moved the location of that contract. We used to have a separate budget specifically for that. And with Workday, we're looking to kind of consolidate the number of separate cost tracking codes that we have. So what we did is we took that contract and we moved it under the law administration budget. So it shows up as a contractual expenditure under that budget. And then 2, you will notice that we did increase the amount, and that's something that we've done over the past 2 years. There's been an initiative, with the public defender's office to increase the salaries of some of the, their attorneys were pretty, they had a pretty low salary that they were being paid. So both the county and the city kind of committed to increasing the amount of those contracts, so that the public defender's office could increase those salaries and hire some additional staff. And, so the city has done that over the previous 2 years. So this year's contract is in the budget for about $820,000, where previously, I think it was down around 400,000 2 years ago. We raised it up to just above 600,000 last year, and now it's up at 800,000. So that's the main change. Other than that, Other than that, within the law department, their staffing level remains the same as it has been. So there's really no major changes other than that one with the public defender's contract.
Okay, I'm just taking a quick peruse of it. All right, I will, let me take a look and see if we have anyone that is wanting to present a question here. I see Miss Amobian, yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Freeman. I have several questions. With regard to the public defenders, what are their starting salaries now? The second question I have, in terms of private legal fees, have we gone up, stayed the same? And you've already answered the third one. So the law department staffing is going to maintain the same level. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Frecker?
That is correct. Yes. In terms of the salaries for the public defender's office, I don't know, maybe, someone from law has information on that. Keep in mind that this is a contract. So the public defender's office is an independent entity. So they're not city employees. This is a contract that we have for them. So the salaries are not set by the city. It's set by, how much money they get from the city and the county and other sources. And then they determine what that salary makeup is.
Yeah, that's correct. We can certainly, Councilwoman, get information. I know that there is a new person who is managing and heading up the public defender's office, Andrea Whitaker, and certainly I think that she's just getting settled and installed into her new position. So I can certainly, my impression is that the average salary for a public defender would be somewhere in the range of $60,000. But that is, I don't want to say that that's definitive, but we can certainly get that information.
They mostly handle civil cases, is that correct?
No, they're the appointed. These are the individuals who operate who provide defense on criminal cases where the person charged is indigent and cannot afford their own lawyer. Okay. And so this is what Joe Kodish was heading up, and so Andrea is now coming on board to operate the public defender's office.
Do they handle death cases? Individuals that are sentenced?
Our contract with the public defender is strictly for our misdemeanors. And the county then contracts with the public defender for our other kinds of cases, for example, juvenile cases, and also with respect to some of the other jurisdictions. So for us, for what we do, it's strictly lawyers who will appear in the respective courtrooms of our municipal judges and who would be defending people who cannot afford to hire a lawyer when they've been charged with a criminal offense.
And the question regarding hiring a private law firms to do work?
We can certainly, I don't know those numbers offhand, so we can certainly try to get those together for you as well. I don't have a sense of it, just off the top of my head.
Do you, Mr. Fricker?
I'm sorry?
Do you have the numbers in front of you?
I do not. Yeah, so we can try to compile those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm coming to Mr. Fusco next.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. And I believe this is in another section in what you're speaking about in terms of the indigent fund. Is that it's just been moved? Is that it, Steve?
Correct. So, and actually, I believe the budget is still listed. It just shows as 0. So on page 13-4, that is the previous location of this budget. And then we moved the expenses and the the budget for 2021 to page 13-1.
Okay, because that was my second question.
Yeah,
That was,
yeah.
I assume then that's the line 70?
Correct. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was my second question.
Yeah.
Then.
Mhm. Yep.
I'm good, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Although, why are we changing it?
Just
in the
to
look-
consolidate. I mean, so what we're trying to do, and a big benefit is when we do these hearings, that's kind of one line item. So rather than have a whole specific budget just for one line item, we're trying to consolidate the number of cost tracking codes that we have as part of Workday. So we made the decision that, it makes sense for law just to really have three separate budgets: the administration, the civil division, and the criminal division. So it just is consolidating things a little bit.
I would submit though, Steve, if there's a way within this to, if it's a certain dollar amount and a significant dollar amount, just make sure that, we kind of like highlight that that's all.
Right.
Thank you.
Very good. Come to Mr. Malik next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Ms. Belfance. One of the things that we've kind of heard from the other departments over the last 2 days has been, obviously how much COVID-19 impacted, each department, and how kind of each department was obviously very essential in responding to that. And I'm sure, and also how it's impacted then the budget for 2020 and the budget for 2021. Just kind of wondering, I'm sure that the law department was faced with lots of novel legal questions, in 2020, but sort of, how are you looking at that going into 2021? And, do staffing levels play a role at all? Is that something where going forward, there are areas where maybe more staffing would be helpful? I just kind of want to get your sense of that, in the year in retrospect.
The year in retrospect was, it was an unprecedented year, as everybody knows. I think that we really, I'm so proud of everybody, both the legal, the attorneys, as well as our administrative staff, because we were working. There were times, the day started at 6 a.m. and didn't end until 11 p.m. and day after day after day. And there were many dynamics happening and many uncertainties. There was a lot of legal research that with respect to any number of things that were happening in real time. So I just can't say enough about the dedication. There was a need for flexibility, for being solution driven, being creative, advising on so many different levels. So I just, and really working collaboratively with all the departments to move quickly to solve any number of issues happening. So guidance was coming out daily, it seems, sometimes hourly, keeping up with advising. So it was really quite a year. I think that we have been, in a overall economic situation where, I don't feel we lost in 2009 a third of the law department in terms of lawyers, and that's never been replaced. So it places a lot of stress on, the individuals who are in both criminal and civil divisions. So we do so much with not as much year after year. So I tell you that we would need more lawyers, of course. I think with the amount of work and really it's but though the economics of municipalities, I get the reality of it. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's very difficult. I mean, we have we have enough work individually to work 24/7. It's just the reality of it. And I think what we produce in a given year is incredible. It's an incredible amount of, and certainly the range of what we produce is incredible.
No, thank you. That definitely addresses it, and obviously, we all really appreciate the work that's done by everyone in the law department.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're at 10 or 11 assistant law directors right now?
We're at 11 in the civil and 7 assistant prosecutors in the criminal.
Okay.
Yep.
You brought up a word, Ms. Belfonte, that we've heard over and over and over for the past 3 days, and that's cooperation amongst departments and how folks, maybe moving into something that's not their bailiwick to make something happen. And we appreciate that very, 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 very much. Please let everyone over there know we appreciate everything they've done the past year, and extend that, if you would, please, for us.
I will do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any other raised hands. So with that, we will move along here. And next, we're going to be, let's see, a department called Finance.
A department called Finance. All right. And I know that we have a number of our managers on the call today. So I'm going to go through, I'm not going to do a huge, list of goals and accomplishments. I'm just going to kind of touch on, a high level summary of what we did in 2020 and where we're going in 2021. Obviously, we've talked a lot about our Workday project, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about that later. But another huge initiative that we've undertaken in finance starting last year is our supplier diversity initiative. And Shelley Goodrich, our deputy finance director, really is the one spearheading that. So I'm going to let her, talk about some of the, the steps we've taken, some of the accomplishments that we've already achieved, and some of the things that we will achieve here in 2021.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, committee members, committee chair, and members of council for allowing us to speak to you today. As Steve mentioned, we have done a ton of work in regards to working on supplier diversity, trying to connect with our small businesses in the community. And part of that has resulted in us bringing on a diversity supplier and contract compliance officer, Ms. Sheena Fain, who's actually on the call with us today. She started approximately 2 weeks ago. We had announced this position last year at State of the City, but then COVID hit and, put the brakes kind of on getting that position filled. And we also wanted to make sure that we had the absolute right person for this position. And we are confident that we have that in Sheena. So Sheena has been getting her feet wet, already reaching out to members in the community, and is going to be doing outreach and working very closely with the Akron Urban League, the Chamber, as well as working with all of us in finance as we are launching Workday. We're going to be revolutionizing the way that we do procurement and allowing it to be easier for our vendors to interact with the city of Akron and win jobs with the city of Akron. In addition, Steve and I have been taking part in the Bloomberg Fiscal Health and Equity cohort. So we have been getting a wonderful amount of resources from the Bloomberg Philanthropy Institute. And we are actually getting some assistance on our procurement goals through the Harvard Performance Lab. They have done work all over the United States, and they're going to be coming in and giving us professional guidance on how we can work to achieve our goals in regards to increasing diversity in procurement in our contracting processes. We're also going to be developing metrics on which we can report to the administration and to city council and the community, because as we've mentioned before, with our current software, which will be ending at the end of this month, Banner, we couldn't even run statistics on how we are doing at contracting with minority-owned businesses. So we've been doing a ton of work in this area. Sheena has already been doing a ton of research, and we're going to continue to work on building those relationships within the community and increasing our spend with our minority and local businesses. So we're willing to take any questions that you have in regards to that initiative that we continue to push forward.
Hey, one question. I know, do you know, is she working with some of the communities have their own board of trades or whatnot? I mean, I know over in our community we do. Is she just working with the Akron chamber, or is she looking at other chambers of commerce too that might be more community oriented?
Sheena, did you want to jump in and take that one?
Sure. So I am actually working with all chambers. So I'm working to create a larger ecosystem because a lot of communities have the same issues. And so what I found is that we're stronger together. So I'm open to ideas and suggestions.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome aboard, by the way. I've been
Thank you.
seeing you show up, but hadn't got to speak yet. So welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Let me come to Ms. Amobian next.
Thank you, and I too welcome the new employee as well. Look forward to meeting you. Exactly, I guess my question, I know we've been working on some goals and objectives and things that we want to accomplish. With Harvard being involved, you can't get any more prestigious than that. Is this going to be a freebie, or are we paying now? Or
It's a freebie. It's a freebie. So luckily, they asked us to take part in this cohort, and they're offering this assistance to us free of charge. So luckily, have been very blessed, and Steve and I being able to go through the program to build connections with finance directors and finance staff and other communities to learn from what they're doing. And now they're going to be providing us this technical support, which is great because Sheena has just joined our team, and that's going to be something that we're working on together to look at what are best practices throughout the United States and how can we bring those to the city of Akron, especially as we're now upgrading our software. We're going to be tracking all of our minority businesses certifications in our software and being able to produce then reporting and kind of judge ourselves on how we're doing in regards to accountability to you guys, to the administration, and to the community, because this is so important to our community as a whole.
And this would be all minority groups, including women and
correct. Yep.
Other. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, thank you very much, and welcome aboard.
Mr. Chair, you're on mute.
I beg your pardon. Okay, Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Sheena. Ms. Goodrich, the training that you and Mr. Fricker are being exposed to, so that we can understand how to pretty much interpret the metrics and how to make sure that when we initiate legislation, put it properly in our legislation. Will you make that training available to council?
I mean, this is training for finance directors that's coming out from Bloomberg. It's very technical. I don't know that it's something that I could easily provide to city council. I mean, the goal though is for us and Sheena to work on providing you guys documentation on how we're doing in the realm of supplier diversity and procurement, and for Sheena to be in front of council, hopefully, quarterly or twice a year to give you, reporting as well. She will also be available, if you guys have questions throughout the year. But in regards to the training that we're getting through Bloomberg, it is very specialized to finance directors. And I don't know that it would be helpful for this body.
Well, if you could ask, I know with the Government Office of Finance and of Administrators that you guys are associated with, I may have that acronym that I may not have said it right, but the one that does your basic training, they had a legislative body course that would help legislative bodies understand, budgets better. I know one of the concerns is no matter what branch of government you're in, no matter what department has been able to normalize understanding, when we, if we put in metrics and they're supposed to be related to creating more equity in policy, there's a way of being able to interpret that properly and understand it. So if what you have is specific for you, if you can ask if they have something that you can share with your legislative body, so that because I know that the government agency that you work with, GOFA, if I'm using that right, I know they put something together especially for us, and I don't know if Mr. Fricker's on the line. I know he felt comfortable with that was a good base for us. But since we're bringing in the metrics, I'm pleased with that. We've been asking for it, but so that all of us on council are on one page and understand how to actually interpret it, it would be good if they don't have something, if you could ask them for something for the legislative body, please.
Okay, yeah, I will definitely inquire.
Thank you.
Very good. Yeah, and Ms. Fain, we're going to be leaning heavily on you here in the future to help us decipher all of the information that's going to be forthcoming. It's kind of an exciting time as we move away from Banner. My understanding, I think what I hear you saying is we're going to be able to, number one, get the information, and it's going to be a bit more digestible, if that's one way to put it.
Absolutely.
Mr. Fusco.
I believe we're on section 14, right? In the budget booklet.
Correct.
Curious, page 20, section 14. The intrafund, and maybe it shows up somewhere else, but that seemed to be a pretty sizable chunk.
Right. So that basically represents the debt service that we pay on the bonds for the CLCs. And that's, so basically all of the 0.25% of the income tax that's dedicated to the CLC gets funneled into this budget, and then we pay the debt on the bonds that we've issued. That's basically what this is.
So we're seeing a reduction in that?
No, we are seeing a
Steve, it's the interfund for the
right. Yeah. So what's happening now? Yeah. So I see. Yeah. So overall, right. But the debt service actually goes up from about 18.8 million to almost 20.4 million. What was happening in previous years is we've now reached the point that we've laddered all of the debt. So we're not doing any more bond issuances for the schools. And, with the tax falling slightly in 2020, we're now at a point where we have a sizable reserve built up in that CLC fund. We're actually at the point where we're actually drawing down on that reserve a little bit, where previously we were adding to the reserve. So that 3.7 million from last year budgeted to add to the reserve, we're now in a position where that's not the case anymore. Now we hope as the tax recovers here over the next couple of years, we'll be back in a position where we're adding again. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. No, that makes sense. And then on page 23 in section 14, just curious about the 21 budget. It seems as though, the interfund service charges again, that section there. What was curious what that was about.
Yeah, so those were transfers out to other funds that we don't have any of those budgeted for 2021. If we end up having to do any of those, we would come back to council and seek to amend that budget. But yeah, so the TIF, because last year we actually built up a little bit of a fund balance in the one TIF fund, because we had enough. Typically we transfer some utilities from the general fund into the TIF fund. We didn't have to do as much of that last year because we had sufficient balance in the general fund. So some of that carried over and it was reappropriated into this year's budget.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Good. Looking to see, I don't see any other hands raised. Oh, there we go. Mr. Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Fricker, just had a couple of specific questions.
Okay.
I'll run through. In 14.02, could you just kind of go through, I wanted to first just get a little bit better understanding of the dividend that came in last year, and then, kind of how that process works just a little bit generally? Because
Correct. So there's actually two separate pieces of dividends that we get. So we get, because we are in a program under workers' comp called group retro. We end up getting, basically every year we do get some, unless we would have a really bad year in terms of the way the claims worked, we get some refund every year from that being in that group retro group back to us. Then, the dividends that were distributed, and I believe the state did 3 separate dividends. That was, something they did, because of COVID and because they felt that they had sufficient reserves built up statewide. And this applied to all Ohio employers, basically, that they decided that they could return, some of that premium costs that have been paid by those employers over years back to the employers. So, we ended up getting that last dividend, was close to $9 million that we got. And that's part of what allowed us to add, that's the primary reason really that allowed us to add so much to our general fund in 2020. So we did take some of that money. If you notice in the budgets, across the city that have any type of labor costs, we did not budget this year for workers' comp. And that's because we took some of what was returned as part of those dividends were given to us to pay our 2021 premium. So we didn't have to budget that cost in the departments this year. So you'll see in several budgets, the fringe category, account type 62, actually goes down. And the primary reason for that is because we're not budgeting for that workers' comp charge out to the departments this year.
Okay, that's really helpful. So is it unlikely that there would be any future disbursements since it was?
No, what they've told us is there will not be any dividends in 2021 because they did such a large one in 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looking at 14.09 IT, is that large number Workday implementation?
1409. I mean, that is basically, it does include, it's not really the Workday implementation. It does include our annual support cost for Workday. But basically what it reflects is that we have hired some additional staff, although we did budget for them last year. We didn't get to hire the additional staff until late in 2020 and then early 2021. We're actually still hiring some of that staff as we speak. I think we're going to bring on 2 or 3 employees here, hopefully in the next month or so.
Okay, great.
But that's really just the IT operating budget is what you're seeing there. Yeah.
In 1410, it seems like there's a rather significant budget cut in the purchasing administration. I know there's a lot of work that was done in that department this year.
I can speak to that. So a lot of that is postage and publication. A lot of expenditures. We were doing things very manually based. That's going to be revolutionized with the implementation of Workday, as well as our charter amendment that now allows us to post things online, which cause us to reduce our charges with the Akron Beacon Journal. That department has also constricted in size. We are looking to hire a new purchasing agent, hopefully within the next couple of months. But, Sean and I have kind of been filling in. So there's a multitude of things, but that is one area where once I took a deeper look at the department, there was significant cost savings that we were able to garner by just working out on some efficiencies amongst the staff and some, like I said, some very manual things that they were doing that we made more tech savvy. So
that's a great success story. So
yeah.
Congrats, and hopefully that process does go well in hiring a new purchasing agent. I know that's not a small amount of work for you and for Mr. Woolman.
No, it is not.
I think just 1 or 2 more questions. 1422, the JED operating costs. It seems like that was going up, not insignificantly. So I just wanted to ask about that?
So as the tax grows a little bit, so you know, a large portion of that, so it looks like about 500,000 of that is we are budgeting for growth in the tax, and therefore the tax sharing that we do with both Fair Lawn and the townships. So that's the primary component of that.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I don't believe, if I'm correct, I don't believe we've had any new negotiations with any of our JEDs that would justify any. Our percentages are still the same, right? Am I correct, Mr. Fricker?
That is correct. Yeah, and we continue to meet with each of the townships, you know, frequently. So
Right. Yeah, and I would say too, I know the townships, at least my experience is, they are appreciative of the administration is pretty regular in meeting with them. It's a great thing. Okay. Yes, Mr. Malik, I see your hand again.
I came up with one more question.
Okay.
Just wanted to touch base. Where is the Akron Cares Water and Utility Relief Program located? And so I know that there was a significant allocation at the end of last year with COVID relief dollars, but what's the outlook for that in 2021?
So it's located, and Shelley could probably speak a little more about the specifics, but there is a component that's located within the sewer budget that we talked about yesterday. I don't know if we talked about the Akron Cares, but the distribution of that is located within the sewer budget. And it actually distributes out to, you know, because a typical utility bill is a combination of curb, water, and sewer. It distributed out to the various components of that.
Thank you.
Very good. Steve, anything else? This is your show right now. Anything else?
Yeah, if I could, I'd like to, you know, kind of continue to just go through and just briefly kind of highlight some of our highlights for finance. So, you know, while we were pretty heavily focused in a lot of our divisions on Workday, you know, we still have all of our day-to-day things that we do. Our audit division led by Cindy Donnell and Mike Wheeler, in addition to putting all these budgets together, also is responsible for maintaining or producing our financial reports, our CAFR that we issue every year, that are our audited financial statements. They implemented 5 separate GASB implementations last year and have 6 more that they're going to have to do this year. So that is a huge amount of work. The federal government is constantly updating the guidelines that cities have to follow in terms of the way they prepare their financial statements. So we have to follow those guidelines. And so that does create some work for us, and Cindy and her staff, you know, they implement those you know, on a timely basis. And, you know, so in addition to everything else going on, we have those, you know, new kind of mandated accounting things that we have to do as well. Our accounting division, you know, may be the most heavily impacted from the Workday project. So Kim Guzman, our accounting manager, I know that when we were going through at the beginning of the Workday project, and we were trying to decide, there's all these different modules and tasks that we had to assign a lead to, and we kept saying Kim Guzman does that one. You know, so she's responsible for payroll, the supplier payments, the customer receivables, there's an expense module that you know, those of you on council will become very accustomed to. So instead of doing these kind of paper forms that we have right now, you're going to be using the Workday app, either your phone or your computer, to submit your travel expenses. And so we're going to a modern expense process as part of the Workday system, and we will be covering that for all of you. So sometime in the very near future, we will look to schedule a meeting specifically with council to kind of go through and give you training on what you're going to need to know for the Workday process. And like I said, it's something that is much more flexible than what we have now. You can access Workday with any device. So it's not just, you can do it on your computer, certainly, but you can also do it on your phone or on an iPad or a tablet or just about any device. You can download the app and use Workday. So, you're going to be looking at your paychecks with Workday. If you have, as part of your employee benefits, if you have a life-changing event, a new family member, something like that, you can go in and make those adjustments in the Workday system yourself. So it's, as I said, we will be scheduling a training session with council sometime in the very near future to go through all that stuff. Our Treasury division, led by Cheryl Bryson, they are responsible for all of the banking and settlement information in Workday. So this is going to change the way that we do our bank reconciliation. It's also, we're going to implement paying many of our vendors via electronic funds transfer as opposed to paper checks as we do for the most part now. So it's going to be a big adjustment for them. We're going to be utilizing the EFT functionality in Workday and paying our vendors via electronic funds transfer instead of paper checks. So that's going to be a big adjustment for them. Our tax department, while they're not really as impacted by Workday as many of the other divisions, they nevertheless had a very challenging year with COVID and doing some work from home, which
And they moved, Steve. We moved them to a smaller space and saved some money. So
right. So we actually had two divisions that moved, and we'll be getting to UBO here in a second. But yeah, we had two of our divisions move in the middle of 2020. So, I want to give some kudos to our Pre-SAR tax commissioner. He kept the tax money coming in under very challenging circumstances with a, kind of a mixture of working from home and working in the office. As I mentioned, UBO, they also moved because we are turning the city center building where their offices were formerly located into housing. They actually were kind of in a not ideal situation over the past couple years where we had half of their staff that was still in the city center and then half of them moved down to our triplet offices. And when the space became available out at the county triangle building, we were able to consolidate them once again. So they've been in there now for how long? It's been a few months now, I think, and have very nice office space there. Should be more convenient for our customers to, to be able to come and make their payments. They don't have to park in a deck, nice parking lot that they can pull right up to the building. Shelley, you had something?
Yeah. I also just wanted to touch to the utility billing department has done a fantastic job administering the Akron Cares program. I think they've estimated that it's actually like 2 FTEs a day that are processing all these applications. I did also want to let City Council know that the mayor has procured another private donation of $250,000 that will be going into the Akron Cares program. That's private funding. We just got the check. And so that allows us more flexibility to help people in need. We still have Federal CARES Act dollars that we are helping people with, but he's continuing to go out and trying to procure those dollars. So utility billing has taken that on. They're actually down 4 employees. And so I can't say enough how much they've worked to administer this program smoothly and to promote it and financial empowerment counseling to all of our residents and our customers. So I did want to give Brian Riemann a little kudos because, that has been quite a lift for them.
Right. And one other thing I'll mention is that while Workday hasn't been, a huge impact for them, at least not yet, there is another project that we are undertaking that will be, and that is our new metering project. And as part of that, we're also going to have a new customer information system. And that's really the core system that's used by Brian and his staff. And that's going to be implemented here over the next couple of years. So that's, what we're going through with Workday right now, they're going to be going through here in the next year or two for putting that system in. And it's going to be a much more modern system with much more better data reporting capabilities. So that's something that's up and coming for them. Our communications division, managed by Malcolm Valentine, is definitely kept busy throughout 2020. They're constantly expanding our city's infrastructure out. They're laying fiber out to a bunch of new facilities. They have their milestone video system program going where they added about 83 cameras last year. They equip all of the various vehicles that the city purchases, the cruisers, our service trucks. That's a very time-consuming thing to put all the radio equipment in those new vehicles. So, they work on all of that. They're also working on our voice over IP conversion. We're about 80% of the way. Is that right, Malcolm?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So they've been keeping busy. Obviously as the city, invest in new technology, we need the connectivity in order to make that technology work. And that's where Malcolm and his staff are putting all that infrastructure in place so that we can use all this technology. And then finally, 2020, I think, is the most, in terms of what our information technology department has done, I can't think of a more transformational year for that department than what we've had in the last year. So, obviously with COVID setting in, their first task was to be able to make it possible for, a huge portion of our workforce to be able to work from home. And they jumped right in with that from day one. And, I couldn't be prouder of how easily we were able to transition over to that work environment where people were, we bought Zoom licenses and we stood up computers for people so that they could, do what they needed to do from home. And that was, we did that in a very short period of time. We do have Ken Klicka on the line. He is our CIO and has been guiding the city through a number of changes, both with, a bunch of these software changes that we're making with Workday. He's going to talk a little bit about Office 365, which is an upcoming project, as well as Engelbert and his staff have done a lot of upgrades to the city's security infrastructure, our server infrastructure. So it's been as I said, we've done more in this past year than I think than we've ever done in the history of that department. So Ken, if you could maybe give the council an update on some of what we've done in the past year.
Thank you, Steve. Good afternoon, everyone. As Steve said, it has been transformational. Engelbert Gao, Bill Fatica, and Darren Rosnick have done an amazing job, as Steve said, through the transformation, getting people to work from home. We really weren't prepared for that size of a change. We already had a lot planned for this year in terms of changes that we wanted to make to the system in terms of modernization, improving security. And we had to put on pause, as everyone did, any hiring new staff. So it was all hands on deck. People put in a lot of extra time and effort to make that happen. So I would echo Steve's comments as well. They did an amazing job, the whole team. One thing I wanted to say, with the city's IT environment, we're talking about a lot of changes to things that the people themselves will see. Workday will be something that individual users will have an interface with. A lot of the things that this team works with is behind the scenes. So specifically, Engelbert's team is a good example where a lot of the security changes we make, it has to be done behind the scenes and keeping the systems up and running. We replaced almost our entire network in about a 6-month period and moved it from one location to our primary data center at Involta. And the fact that we were able to do so with so little disruption to our overall operation is a huge gold star for Engelbert's team. Bill Fatica, who runs our service desk, has done a great job in helping with all the changes that we're doing, one of the big things that we're trying to do is modernize all of our desktops. We have a lot of old systems that we're trying to replace. So as we've been able to get some monies through CARES Act for laptops, we're in the process of replacing older systems with those and imaging older systems that still have some functional lifespan, but making them more modern and more secure. And there's been a lot of collaboration also with the public safety team. They have some technologies that we've adopted. So there's been a lot of collaboration there to get the city in a more secure place. Darren's team has focused on helping with changing what we're doing with these major applications. One of the big ones that's coming, Steve mentioned, is Office 365. So one of the things that we've already done this year in 2021 is we've moved the city's email system from a version that was from 2007 to a more modern version, intermediate to moving it to be online. And that's something that's going to take place after the workday goes live. We're going to let everybody take a breath for a couple of weeks, and then we're going to move those systems online. There'll be an adoption of new versions of Office that people use. Some will be, some people in the city have a version of Office that's roughly 11 years old. So we're going to update that as well. And one of the big things is that this technology allows us to be able to work more collaboratively, share files easier, work from home easier, access information easier, but also more securely. And that is a key theme to what the IT department as a whole has been working on.
So SharePoint, is that a part of 365?
It is. Yes, that's correct. That will be something that we'll adopt a little later in our process. The email migration is really kind of the first step. Although we've been working to take some of what we're doing with Workday. We want these changes to be as easy as they can be for people to accept. So, for example, we want the Workday login to be the same login that they use for their network. And that's actually a pretty technically sophisticated thing to implement so that people don't have to remember, a whole separate username and password system. And so that's something that's been done as part of this process.
Right. And one thing I'd also like to point out, with this Workday project is the work that Darren Rosnick has done on that project. He's really been kind of the glue from the city that has held that together. It's been a very challenging, especially with COVID and the fact that, on a typical project like this, you'd be able to collaborate and sit down in a room and meet and with implementing that with COVID, all of our stuff has to be done via Zoom. So that's added an additional challenge, and Darren has kind of, held this whole project together. We also had an individual from Sickich named Joe Thomas, who we brought in as a project manager that also, was invaluable in terms of keeping that project going. So, we had a very aggressive timeline for the implementation of the system, and it sure looks like we are going to hit our go live date of April 1 with this software. So again, I just want to give a shout out to Darren, really kind of kept that project rolling along.
We have fewer servers. Do we have
Sorry,
fewer
go ahead.
servers? I'm sorry. We have fewer servers because of Workday now. I mean, just.
I mean, I'll let Ken speak to this, but I believe the answer ultimately is going to be yes. This and other systems are going to cause us to need fewer physical servers that we maintain ourselves and have much more of our information held, by the software provider in the cloud.
Okay,
That's correct. So as we move certain applications to cloud hosted systems that we don't host anymore, we no longer need to maintain those resources. Even the work that Engelbert and his team did in migrating us, there was a reduction in the number of servers. We got rid of old things, consolidated, made it more efficient. There was a lot of work done there, as well as, we increased our internet connections, replaced our firewalls, changed our VPN. There's been, Steve said it's been transformational. It has been really kind of staggering what everybody's accomplished. And we have a large 2021 is not gonna, we're not gonna take the foot off of that change. We're gonna continue to press forward because there's still a lot to do.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to jump in and echo again. I know we've said this a million times, but Steve and I are so proud of the work that all of these individuals have done. We've all been working insane hours. The amount of work that we have accomplished in the last year, considering the fact of the pandemic, has been, I mean, it's amazing. And so we are very, very lucky to have such a hardworking group of managers in finance who have really been willing to jump in and take on all these crazy projects that people probably take way longer to do over the last year, especially with dealing with the challenges of everything with the pandemic. So again, we are very appreciative for all of you guys and all of your hard work.
Shelley and Steve, you both sound like parents bragging on children. So
Well, we are. I
Yeah,
mean,
we are.
we've been working a million hours, and we are just so excited to go live with Workday. And it's going. The next couple of months are not going to be, you know, there's going to be some challenges, but we'll get through it. And we're really I just can't believe everything that we've done this year. So it's and especially people taking time off and COVID and social distancing and having to go remote. I mean, the amount of things that and challenges that every department has faced and come through. I mean, it's just amazing.
okay. Hey, Steve, before we continue on, I see Mr. Neal has his hand up, please.
Okay.
Hey, Russ. Or
Hey,
no, that
Mr.
was,
Chair, I think Mr. Fusco had his up before me.
okay, very good. Mr. Fesco.
No, all I want to say is thank you for all that effort. And I guess maybe your first email that you go for training and so on and so forth, maybe it should be headed, you know, patience, patience, patience. Having seen this before, you know, going through a transition like this it's like you said, I know you guys realize this, the next couple months that hill's going to really be steep. But it sounds like you guys did all the groundwork and you know all the heavy lifting is just going to be a bit more ahead. But no, great job. It sounds so exciting and look forward to this success. Thank you for all your effort.
Absolutely. Okay, Russell, come to you.
All right, thanks, Mr. Chair. I'd like to know if we have an idea, and those that have been around for a while and remember the initial conversation. You know, the fear, oh, the cloud, our stuff is going to be in the cloud. We're afraid of the cloud. But what I'd like to know is now that we've moved this way, it seems like there would be a added benefit from the security side where we don't have to invest so much. Do we know what that trade-off is and what kind of savings that would be? Because you know, this is our most sensitive information. It would seem that would take that part of the burden off of us.
I'll answer that. It doesn't change the burden around security for the rest of what we do, but it does change the burden for the things that we do move. So in that, your perspective is correct. We still have to play an active role, though, in how we use those systems correctly online. So we still have responsibilities to do things from in a secure standpoint. I mentioned as part of the Workday project, we're working on integrating the security that we have for our internal network to be extended to the cloud. So we do. It's a mixed effort. It doesn't translate necessarily to a financial benefit, but it's aggregate to our security and the vendors that we do work with working together. It adds additional security layers. So the improvement's really in an elevated level of security as opposed to at the same cost, if you will.
No, I follow. Does it because I mean cybersecurity is such a big concern across the board. Does it protect us from some of the threats we had in the past? Does that storage factor in the cloud protect us from some of the things we had in the past?
Not particularly. security issues are very complex. I would say that the primary thing that we still need to protect ourselves from is malware that would potentially get on our internal network and people's individual computers. And that threat will, as long as we use individual computers, that threat will never go away. Whether we're using systems internal or cloud-based, that it really, unfortunately, that doesn't get impacted or mitigated by moving those things. It does allow us that the emphasis has been, how do we incrementally improve every week? We work, Engelbert actually has a meeting every week with city IT staff on what are we changing week to week to continuously improve our security. And it's those efforts that really, I think, have the greatest impact. So it's a laundry list of different things that we need to do to continue to do that on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. And some of these projects do give us the ability to do some things that we never could do before. The new firewall system, for example, is a perfect example of that. We have a much improved security system in place. In addition to some of the partnerships that we've implemented with the Center for Internet Security. They help monitor our network for malicious threats. So we are taking those steps, but it's unfortunately, it's never going to go away. We'll always be working on that. It's a constant process.
Thank you.
Okay, Steve, you want to continue on?
So, I mean, in terms of the finance budgets, you know, I assume that we can move on to and we just really have one final budget, and that is the health budget, which really just primarily is the contract that we have with the Summit County Health Department. So that cost remains the same as it was last year. We also have some contractual costs that are associated with our first term, first birthday program that Tamika Rose administers. So, you know, she has some contractual relationships with certain people and we cover those costs out of that particular budget.
Okay, Mr. Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Fricker, I guess, you know, one of the things that I've thought about throughout the year, I think a lot of us have, is that, you know, obviously the health department was not resourced in a way to prepare for a once in a century pandemic, right? And that's, you know, that it's obvious that we all know that, right? I guess, you know, one of the thoughts is, you know, we all don't know what the post-COVID world is going to look like, but ostensibly the health department is going to have a little bit more of an elevated role. I guess, how long do we have left on that contract? I believe it's a contract, and sort of, have there been any discussions? I know there's been so much more, so there's already a lot of collaboration with Donna Scotta's office, but there's been obviously so much during the past year. I just wanted to kind of raise that as a thought.
Okay, understood. Yeah, and I don't know specifically what the termination date of that contract is, or you know, when the renewal would be up. We will get that information for you.
Thank you.
Very good. I do not see any other hands at the moment. Steve, you've sat here and heard us, you know, sing the praises of all the departments, and it was justly earned. Your team is incredible, and we can't say thank you enough. And I just, on a personal note, we were with someone outside last night talking about the city of Akron, and I think more folks realize than maybe what we give them credit for sometimes. I think folks realize we've got a pretty good group downtown, and we've got a pretty good group of folks that are working for us. And just thank you so much for everything that, you know, that finance and the auditing divisions that do to keep this machine running. So thank you very, very much.
We appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. I couldn't agree more. We have a great group of people here.
Yeah, absolutely. We are through everything. Kind of as a wrap up here, Steve, any outstanding questions or whatnot, as council members, would you have us email you or department heads, or come to you first with any of the budget finance questions we would have?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could email me. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And just Courage, this is what, this is Thursday. If we could get those in as quickly as possible and give you ample time to respond, we'd appreciate that from everyone. And I do see Mr. Fusco's hand.
Yeah, just I know throwing around thank yous and all. Chairman, I just want to say thank you for all your commitment to this and kind of keeping us, playing in between the lines as much as you can in terms of going through this whole thing. It's a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of effort. Just thank you, Ms. Donnell. Thank you, Shelley. Thanks, Steve. All you guys have been through all this, putting it together and then presenting it to all of us. Appreciate it. And thank you.
Absolutely. Any other council members want to chime in with anything? Because we're about to close out here. Mr. Malik.
This is a little bit of a silly thing I'm going to say, but one of the things over the last 3 days, there's been so many great stories, and really, I think telling in some ways the city's story of this past year. And I'm not Dave Lieberth, but I think if Dave Lieberth was here, we'd want to create some kind of record, right? And these meetings on YouTube are something, but I don't know if there might be the ability to kind of have folks sit down with someone and just kind of get some of these stories down. Because when you're talking about folks staying, away from their families in trailers at the water plants to make sure the city has water, or folks in the law department changing their legal opinions by the minute, or folks in the police department, the fire department, it really, there is so much here that I think the people of the city of Akron kind of need to know that and need to be told that story. Obviously, those are stories. Everyone throughout this community has faced, different challenges with COVID. But I just really, that's the sense that I take away from these 3 days. So can't thank everyone enough for all of what we've heard. I just that.
Yeah, those are excellent comments. We were having conversation last night, and my wife responded, "Well, why aren't those things in the paper?" And I think your point is well taken. Maybe something looking back in printed form, or that folks can see. Here's what Akron did during 2020, because we've heard stories that just absolutely blew my mind, and a couple of them you mentioned. So, Mr. Lombardo, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, just wanted to thank Mr. Fricker and Ms. Goodrich for everything that they've done. Requests, big or small, are handled professionally and right on time. So I just want to say thank you for all that.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardo.
Mr. Chair, this is Linda.
Yes, Ms. Abobian.
I too would like to thank everyone for everything. I think it's important for people to realize you don't have to wait for someone else to write your story. You can write it yourself, and make sure you keep a record. Because a lot of times we wait for other people to do it. They don't do it as well as we can. And we do have a communications department? Don't we, Steve?
We do. We have, that people that work for the administration that, are monitoring, they're putting out press releases, they're monitoring social media. So, we do have a robust communications department.
And since you were doing this for council, the council has, do we still have that company on the contract that we use? I don't know,
We
sir,
do not,
you know?
not at this time. No, I know that is something that the council president, has included in the budget, but the former contract is no longer in place. So I think that's something that they're looking to put in 2021.
I see. Okay. But thank you very much. This has been great.
So everyone on the call, if you would please, wherever you're at, stand up and take a bow, because we're applauding you right now. Thank you so very, very much. All right. Well, I want to thank all of the folks on the city council side that have been able to attend. I think we were very disciplined in our questions and our inquiries Thank you for that. Thank you so very, very much for that. Any questions, please refer them to forward those to Mr. Fricker, because this is a budget that we're going to want to get passed here. So we want to, anything that you want addressed, now is the time. Steve, anything else to come before us here?
No, not really. You know, like I said, we will try to you know, get the questions addressed you know, as soon as we can. You know, potentially, you know, obviously finance committee will meet again on Monday, you know, to discuss the budget. So.
Okay, very good. Thank you again, each and every one of you, for being with us. And it is 4:12 and we will adjourn. Thank you so much.